Yeah. I'm probably not gonna go in person to see the Minecraft movie because I don't know. Like, it's gonna be bad. It is gonna be interesting, I guess, like some sort of cultural event. I'll just watch it. I'll just watch it somewhere at home. Probably not pirate it, but I don't know. Wait to see it. It's gonna be something that's gonna come up over the next like 10 years. People will be like, "Oh, did you see the Minecraft movie? Like, did you get a grimace shake?" You're gonna write a paper on it. Why is this such a cultural phenomenon? I think what's most interesting about it is that you look at other movies that have come out that try like Snow White is what everyone's comparing to, which actually tried allegedly. Like they put a lot of money into it and it just totally bombs. And the Minecraft movie that looks like they really didn't care and makes a ridiculous amount of money. Like it hit that perfect. It's so bad it's good. Well, no, that, that's why no one's taking it seriously. I don't think it ever went away. Yeah. Those are all I bet those are all fake. Yeah, the parkour. I avoid those. If I get something that like curses my Instagram or whatever, I'll just close the app and I feel like I'm like kind of like booping a dog on its snout. Like, no, like don't do that. And it seems to work. Like three to five times. If you just get a bunch of like, say I'm getting Reddit stuff, which is really terrible, I'll just close the app a couple times and then it'll learn. It'll be like he doesn't like Reddit, which is like it's kind of nice. I'm like training my algorithm brick by brick, building it up. That's bizarre. I wish them the best of luck on their journey of love. so did you also hear that they were going to make a Tangled movie, a live action Tangled that has now been delayed indefinitely? Yeah, I saw a post from some I don't remember who it was, but some black Republican on Twitter. He said they were gonna make her black as hell. It's like, yeah, I think so. So many. There was plenty of people who've said it where it's like, huh, I wonder why. I don't think why does it need to be like straight hair? It could be dreads. Who knows? Who knows what goes on in those writers' rooms when they're not on strike? Well, well, there is something where a lot of times they have to like reuse things. Like I'm not sure about if it's every property, but some properties like you have to make a movie every so often. Like I think when Sony lent out Spider-Man, like they had to make a new movie every or like Sony has to make a new movie every so often with Spider-Man to retain the property. And I think the same thing kind of happens with Disney is like every so often you have to make something about a property. So like they make something but they just make it terribly because they don't actually care. That may or may not be the case this time. Um the name rings a bell but I don't remember. That's I don't know. That's not coming to mind exactly. Oh, I have heard of this. Probably. That's it's not coming in as much anymore. There's so many layers that I'm sure they were because it just goes through like five different companies, that that make it seem like it's unconnected, but it really is. It's all Soros money, which turns out is actually all the government's money. So I don't know. Well, I think somebody will go down that rabbit hole eventually, but I don't think it matters that much anymore. Like I think they're getting cut off. The producers, okay. Well, movies are dying. Hollywood's dying. Um, good. No, that sounds interesting. If they make it good, but they always make the characters bad. The human parts are awful, like every Godzilla movie, except for minus zero. Is it minus zero? Minus one? Minus one. Perfect movie. Perfect. Like down to the last minute detail was perfect. Um, but what you do? No, they were holding you back. That's every one of those stories. I think they're rage bait. I think they're all rage bait for views. But it's all affirmation from people who also are like in the same predicament. So they're crab bucketing each other. Yeah, it sounds like it. They're not entertaining. I don't like them. Yeah, it makes me sad. I don't like feeling pity for people all the time. I like it just is unpleasant. I why yeah. I can enjoy sad okay, I can enjoy sad things. I can't enjoy pathetic things. Like I can't like read some of these stories and like hear how these people live and like internalize that and like think about that. It's so no, no. The reason I haven't seen it is because you because you're gonna say, "Oh, I told you so," so that day will never come. Speaking of speaking of anime, I was gonna say there was we're talking about like the cultural the phrase swapping and like how storytellers can't write anything. That's why everybody's like going to animes because it's like more reasonable. But we were talking about that one about the girl in the Chinese. I don't know what century it was, but hundreds probably. And it's like a realistic story where not everybody is like a super feminist or like we were just talking about how it would be made in the West, where it's like, yeah, where like the girl would be a super feminist and all the men would be dumb and evil. And it's like, no, it's like everybody acknowledges there's good things about the times, there's bad things about the times, there's things you just had to put up with that you as an individual have no control over, versus like, oh, we got to tear this system down constantly, like the YA novels. Like the YA novel people are now like all millennial adults, and so but they like still fall for the YA stuff, like the young adult stuff. It's very weird. Yeah. No, no, I haven't. How was it? Yeah, is it? Yeah, he's like the repeated the voice. Yeah. Well, well, I, I think for the like the anime, because most of it's made based off of manga, which are like published in certain magazines for certain audiences specifically. And so when that's translated in the anime, it's like they're making it for an audience, like one audience probably. So if you're an adult, you're probably not going to watch the kid stuff, and if you're a kid, you're not going to watch the adult stuff, and it's made for each audience. Where like all the Marvel movies are made for everybody, so you can't have any like you got to have like adult jokes, but then you can't have any like serious moments because kids like don't like the serious moments or whatever they think. And so it's just like all slop because it's like least common denominator to every single age group and every demographic all at the same time, and so it's got no message and like no actual substance. It just that's why they're all like they all just feel like cardboard. Hmm. Well, basically everybody plays. Yeah, everybody plays games. Everybody watches anime. It's like over 70% of people in our generation watch anime like weekly, or I think it was like 67% watch anime weekly. And it's like that's a lot. They're caught in the middle. Well, well, if you noticed at those protests, there was like no young people. It was all boomers. It was all boomers at the like the hands off protests. And even like young people who were there were like, why is there no why is like 90% of the people here geriatrics? Like why'd they have to roll them out of the retirement home to come protest? It's like because they don't care. Like millennials don't care. They want the market to crash so they can buy a house. Same thing with Gen Z. And we're living in a country now where the generations have like actual disdain for each other, which is not good because that doesn't really end well for anybody. We're about to start a new one. What and they wanted to inflate all their assets, the housing prices intentionally. So they bring in a bunch of people to create false scarcity compared to like where the actual birth rate should be, just to inflate their prices. It's like, well, it's like all the asks, all the money got funneled to the top to the corporations as well. Like, yeah, it's outright. And and then they say you're lazy. Yeah, and then they shift the burden. The environment was different. Well, it's a pyramid scheme. Social Security is literally a pyramid scheme. It relies on more people paying in infinitely. And they thought the pyramid scheme was going to last until they cashed out, and that probably might not be the case. And I saw a clip today that made me kind of mad, and it was one of the people on Patrick Bet David. There was some young guy on there, and the young guy was basically like, "Yeah, I don't care that the stock market's crashing because like young people just don't care." It's and the guy was like, "What, you want your grandma to be homeless?" He's like, "Well, the old people are the ones who like robbed us of all our wealth." He's like, "Well, when are you going to take responsibility and just work harder?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." He's like, "You sound like a victim." And I'm like, "I'm pretty sure you, the boomers who are complaining, sound like victims right now." Yeah, yeah, it's like I'm pretty sure you guys are like acting like victims. Like, why does nobody care? It's like cuz they don't have enough money to care. You got to incentivize people to care. Sorry, but what what we should really, yeah, we're not. I saw something today where it's like Trump wants to fine them like 900 and something dollars for every day they're here legally. It's like, wait a minute, if you can send them a bill for being here, you know where they are, go arrest them, get rid of them. And if you actually, and people are like, oh, this will work to lock them out of the economy, I'm like, no, it won't, because they're just never going to pay up. Like, if they're never going to pay up because they know that you want to deport them anyways, and if they don't pay up, you'll deport them anyways. It's the same outcome, right? That illusion where like that meme where the cow is standing in front of the two doors and it leads to the one. It's an illusion. It leads to the same outcome, so they're never going to pay up. You're just delaying their deportation. If you actually want to get rid of these people, you have to lock them out of society. Like really go after any company that's hiring people who are illegal, like major ones, and basically bankrupt any small business that's doing it. Make sure they can't rent an apartment, they can't get a car. You just lock them out of society and say go home, and say, to be generous, if you come to us and say I want to go home, we'll get you home. We'll fly you home. We're not going to make you cross the desert again. That's unsafe. That would not be charitable. The charitable thing to do would be to like make sure you get home safely, which is already like further than we probably should go given the situation. But that's a compromise I'm definitely willing to make. Sorry, I'm getting messages in my chat that they can't hear you, so I'm trying to figure that out. Um, yeah, from me, but it's your fault. Sorry, I'm getting a message. The problem is I don't know why, so that's gonna be something I'm figuring out. I yeah. How do I make sure I'm recording that? Because I can see the desktop audio moving. That's why I was. Maybe I just have to mess with the advanced properties here. No, it's you. Well, it's fine. We can keep talking. I'll just keep trying to mess with it.
Like 35 hours a week or something crazy like that. I mean, crazy for a high schooler, right? You got school and stuff to worry about, and then you got to go work 35 hours a week.
In the
That's kind of
mines.
nuts. And the reality is, most modern Americans know that no modern Americans want to or is willing to
Okay.
do the
All
dirty
right. I
work
think
of
I
the
figured it out.
immigrants. I mean, that's kind of true, but
They don't want to do it for the pay that the migrants are getting.
right. So we're essentially subsidizing these industries.
But you know what we could do is replace them with AI, replace them with robots. I've seen the technology, the drones picking strawberries. Would it be expensive? Yes. Is it something that a first world nation should invest in instead of near slavery? Probably. You know, it's feasible to get this stuff done, but there is a good point to be made that it's hard to single one thing out and do it independently because all this stuff is connected, and so it's hard to do one thing to change an environment or like pull one string that really affects you and try to improve on that without changing the entire environment. So it is
just because
unfortunate
something
that
is
there's going to be some growing pains when we move.
just because something's difficult and damages the economy doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it, right? In the short term.
No.
Because the long-term benefit, I mean, even Milton Friedman, people are quoting Milton Friedman, they're showing his like pencil lecture about it. Oh, no one person can make a pencil. We need the whole world. But even he says, once the economic effects, when you stop printing money or you stop doing whatever's like bad long-term economic policy, it's like quitting alcohol. The immediate effects are worse than the effects of the alcoholism because you start going into detox and you start,
but
you're shaking and you're scratching the
those
bugs.
going to be is the question.
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out. I mean, the stock market dumped and then pumped and then dumped and then pumped. It's down 4%. It's up like
I don't think it's going to really change
50% since
every
4 years
country's
ago.
dropping their tariffs anyways.
Right.
Like since they've already done that, then basically we're back to zero, except for we don't have tariffs on us.
I mean, we don't have the stock market is a horrible metric for determining the health of the economy. Anyway, you know this, I'm sure, because you're not seeing like real wage growth. You're not seeing productive capacity, right? Things like that.
You're seeing a representation of like 10% of the population.
Yeah, it's literally, I think
10 owns 88.
The top 10%, owns 88% of the stocks.
And then the next 40 own the 12%, and then the bottom 50 own nothing, basically. So
yeah, I mean, you got some middle class people are invested in 401ks and stuff, but other people don't have any stock portfolio, right? So that's why you see these Zoomers are like, well, I don't really care because I don't have a stock portfolio, right? And nothing's really changing. In fact, prices should drop on some things. They were saying, well, oil prices are going to skyrocket because of these tariffs. Well, actually, oil futures are through the floor, and oil's down to $60 a barrel for crude. So that should reduce gas prices. Remember when gas was like, what was it, like $1.39 during COVID because oil futures went negative? I should have done that. I should have taken a position on that and taken delivery of crude oil, and then just my friend and I had a plan. We were going to store it in his grandpa's pole barn. We were going to take delivery of I think it was a minimum of 1,000 barrels of oil.
1,000 barrels of oil.
And they were going to pay us. They were going to pay us like $36,000. No, Yeah, it was like $36,000 because it was negative $36 to take it, and then we would hold it, and then we would sell it. We should have done
You should have done it. A lot of effort though. One thing you said about the pencil analogy, I saw a clip of Nick Fuentes talking about that, and he's like, there's a big difference between pencils, non-essentials, and like essential resources. He's like, you want to have control of the steel, you want to have control of the lumber, you want to have control of the ship manufacturing plants and whatnot. He's like, that's where the big difference is. It's like, it's great to say it's fine if the eraser's made in India and the wood's made in China or whatever, but you don't want your medical equipment all made in China, your greatest geopolitical foe, which we're doing right now. And we don't want our steel made somewhere else. And we don't want basically any necessities made anywhere else, because then suddenly they can just cut it off. And that's why China is still going to bat with Trump, and why even I'm a little scared about the China negotiations. I don't think anything that bad will happen, but because China has a lot of influence over us. They can just shut off the taps on a lot of these things. And that's not good. We've already put ourselves in a bad position. At least Trump is trying to get us removed from that global interdependence, but it's going to take some time.
Yeah, I mean, and people were asking the question, well, why do we need to make toasters and refrigerators? Because they don't really realize, not that we're in a war position right now, and hopefully we don't get into one, but if ever we did, the Ukraine war shows us that we don't have the productive capacity to actually compete with a country like Russia or China. Russia, I forget my figures now exactly, but essentially, like the number of shells that we were making run out in like a matter of weeks, whereas
Yeah,
Russia
I've
makes
heard that
more
too.
shells a month than we do a year. Something like, it's probably even faster now. It's probably every couple of weeks they make more shells than we do in a year. We have these howitzers, our 155 millimeter howitzer. We sent a bunch of them to Ukraine. We need to now make more for ourselves. Well, we can only make like a couple a year because there's only one, like, I think it's called a titanium vacuum forge or something. It's a very special, very technical, high tech piece of forging equipment, and there's only like one of them in the country that
Working
makes the
night and
barrels for
day, it
these.
would probably take you a year to build some of these plants that we need. And so we can't just get into a direct confrontation. That's why even like the stuff with Iran is kind of concerning, because total war with Iran is not anything I desire.
It's
And
not actually, yeah.
it's like,
It is not 1991 anymore, right? We are not the world's only superpower. We are not the premier power on the planet. We're still the most powerful, but again, we don't have that productive capacity. You see a video from World War II where they're showing this plant is making machine guns, and it's like, well, what were they making 2 weeks ago? Oh, sewing machines, right? Like, and that happened all the time. You can go and get, the tanks in were made in Detroit in the Ford plants. So were some of the bombers.
right, but all of the infrastructure was already there.
It's
It
already there,
required a
but we don't
couple
have that.
weeks, months to shift it.
But if we ever had to get back onto a war footing, we don't have the scientific industrial base that we need. Because again, it's not even just World War II anymore. I mean, you need to make guns and you need to make ammo and artillery, but the high tech stuff, right? They had to bring in people to make Stinger missiles because we were sending them to Ukraine, and we wanted to make more because apparently, they're pretty effective today, even though they're from 40 years ago. But they had to bring in the people who made the original Stinger missiles, these 80-year-old guys, and have them kind of spool up production because nobody could figure out how to make them just from the technical papers alone. There's like a certain amount of institutional knowledge that is required that you need to pass on from generation to
Well, yeah,
generation.
nobody's like passing on the like hand skills and stuff. They're telling you like, oh, we got to hold it this way and do that. That's not in the papers. None of that's in the papers. Or how production should be outfitted. How like what is the timeline from beginning to end, when things need to be cooled, when they need to be transferred. None of that stuff's going to be on the papers, probably. It's just going to be like a list of stages. And that's going to be for everything we make. So I don't know. I'm concerned about Iran a little bit, just because, oh, like, we've moved
I mean,
an
I'm not.
aircraft carrier over there. I don't think there's really going to be a war, but it's like it's kind of a nuisance to keep like
If there
Trump
if
keeps
there was a
trying to
war,
talk about it.
we would. I think we would lose relatively quickly. It would become apparent that we have no chance of meeting any of our strategic objectives, whatever those would be, completely dismantling their nuclear program, defeating the Iranian army, forcing them to capitulate, forcing them to stop funding terrorist
Not
organizations.
without heavy casualties. Like you're
No,
talking
because
blow for blow at the best.
because this
And
isn't
we're not ready
Iraq.
for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of Americans to die. We're not ready for that.
No, Iran is not Iraq. They are much bigger. They have a much larger population. They're more mountainous,
90
and
million.
so about 90 million people. Yeah, so they have a large, well-equipped, relatively modern army. So, certainly not on the same level as ours in all places, but that doesn't really need to be, right? In a lot of areas, the countermeasures have become more effective than the actual weapon system itself. So, like these anti-ship missiles, so far as we know, there isn't really a great counter to those. I mean, I'm sure that the Navy's been cooking up stuff. I'm sure there are some countermeasures, but if the Iranians launched enough anti-ship missiles, that could be a disaster. And I don't think in Americans, we're not really ready or equipped to, I think, deal with a ship going down and losing, 6,000 people. Because when ships go down, most of the people die.
Yeah.
That's something,
We're
most
well,
most of the time, there's not a lot of
dragged.
survivors.
They get
They get
dragged
sucked.
down by
They
the
get locked in. Yep, they get locked into so it's nasty
We're
business.
not ready for the videos either. I was talking to someone earlier today, and I said, "This is what you're going to see: is you're going to see a video on Twitter of some American 20-year-old with his legs blown off, crawling back to his Jeep, screaming about how he wants to go home and he wants his mom, and you're going to see that spliced with videos of all Republicans talking about how war is bad when referencing the Ukraine war, and so."
Mhm.
You're going to see that a video of that spliced with Elon saying like a couple weeks ago about Ukraine, like people are dying in Ukraine. And for what? For what? That clip, you're going to have the clip of Trump saying, people are dying. I want to end the war. People are dying. You're going to see, and then you're going to be like, weren't you guys supposed to be anti-war? Like Trump, weren't you supposed to be the anti-war president? And then you're letting this
Well,
happen.
it's a different case when it's our greatest ally that asks us to go to war.
Yeah.
Then
So that's, but I'm saying it's going to be so unpopular. I looked up first. I did some research today, and I saw most recent poll I could find was from 2022, and it said only 12% of people support war with Iran. I'm like, that number is going to be even less now. It's like even if it's doubled over the last 3 years, 24% of people want war with Iran. Really? Like it's not popular. Nobody wants it. Nobody is in support of it. I think very quickly, what we would see, because everybody's got a phone, we would see videos that are very unpalatable to Americans, and I think we would pull the plug. And I think it'd be very embarrassing because you're pulling the plug. You didn't meet any objectives. Now you've just shown your hand. You've shown you've just lost to a country that you probably should have beaten. And it's just like America would be kind of a laughing stock. And that would give way more license to everybody else to do whatever they want. Because right now we're kind of an unknown quantity of like, really, how would we function in a war? But if we get absolutely humiliated, then China's just going to take Taiwan. Russia will just finish the job in Ukraine. Whatever, people just do what they want.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have the Wunderwaffe, the wonder weapons that we're always talking about, right? This will turn the tide in Ukraine, and we talk about it. I know people that they're just obsessed with the F-35. They're like, the F-35, it's invisible, it's perfect, it's flawless. They'll never see it coming. It can strike from so far away. Israel used the F-35, and they have one of the best versions of it, maybe the best version of the F-35. I don't remember the exact designation. And then when they were doing raids in Iran, when they were responding to some of the Iranian missiles that were being launched, they flew over Iranian airspace or near Iranian airspace to launch missiles at them, and they were targeted. They were locked on by some sort of weapon system. Now, they weren't sure whether it was Iranian or it was Russian or it was, on loan to Iran from Russia.
The technology's out there.
It doesn't matter. The technology's out there. Something out there can lock on to what is supposed to be a completely invisible plane
that we don't have.
So
we don't.
We probably have something similar. We probably can do the same thing to any kind of stealth fighter. It's just that
our advantage is not as
you don't have if you don't have air supremacy, then like now you're on the ground, and that's the problem. Is that there's only so much that you can do. The laws of physics are, I'm not a physicist, but are such that you have a enormous building-sized plane, and you can angle it as however you want, and you can find the greatest, coolest materials. But you know what? It is still there. It is still moving. It is still taking up space, and it seems to me that waves and beams and all these, these physics, these particles, whatever, they're going to be able to detect that. Like, it's easier to make counter systems than it is to make the system itself.
Right, and then it's a ground game, and
And we can't
we
win a ground
we
war. We're
we have
not
a,
even
we have a
a
serious competency crisis as well. And so when you're talking about people on the ground making rational decisions based on good training, we don't have that at the
you're
moment.
talking about invading a mountainous region full of people who, have been trained their whole lives to
To,
fight you.
to,
They
to
don't. You're
fight in the
not going to win that
mountains.
war. And
No,
it's all the way across.
send the
You won't
Appalachians
win.
in like first wave.
I mean, obviously, Iran doesn't pose any real significant threat to the United States. If anybody came over here, we would
Oh yeah,
curb
we
stomp
just
them,
destroy
right?
them. Yeah,
But
but that's what the world's looking like. It's kind of like it's very very hard to invade somewhere else. Is that some water I see?
yeah, I'm a little thirsty.
That's good.
But, I mean, that's always been the case. But I mean, gosh, look at Germany. Look at World War II. It took us years before Operation Overlord, and that was the second front opened up to try to take pressure off the Soviet Union so that they could really be the ones doing the heavy lifting. But not. I mean, we waged a pretty effective war. I mean, we won, obviously, but
Mhm.
it's like you took three empires to take down Germany,
That
and it
destroyed the
took
empires as well. Two of them.
that did end in the result, or did result in the destruction of multiple empires. So, um,
Arguably three, because we're on our decline as well. We've been declining ever
yeah,
since then.
the British
So,
Empire was a much more immediate. Soviet Union was actually strengthened, at least in some ways, and then we were too. But
but I think
um,
the consequences led to their collapse
right, and
inevitably. I mean, butterfly
sure.
theory, butterfly effect. It's kind of
And
hard to
I'm
pinpoint.
not trying to make this about World War II. It's just like, hey, that's the last time we were engaged in like a real ground war, and
No
it's
one
not as
came out
easy as you would think.
unscathed.
It's
Yeah.
not as easy as you would think that it is. So, and we only lost 300,000 troops in that whole war because we got in kind of so late. And
Well, the
I mean, the
question
Germans
is,
were kind of fleeing from us as the
when
both
when we
ends.
go into Iran, what else happens on the world stage? Is like, are we going to then go and also start a two front war by fighting China because China invades Taiwan? Can we do that? What else happens externally to the central conflict in the Middle East? And that is where I think
Well,
very, very quickly we'd lose control and realize we have no hopes of fighting a two or three front conflict.
Well, I think hopefully Trump is wising up to the fact that we don't have the kind of leverage that he thought that we did. I think he was getting bad information on the campaign trail because he was saying I'm going to get this war done in first day. Well, to me, like I understood, I thought that if he really was serious about doing that, that he meant he was just going to give Russia whatever they wanted, because
That's what I thought too.
that
Just
was the
pull the
only way
pull
you were
the money plug
pull
on
the plug.
Ukraine.
That was the only way you were going to end that war on the first day or in any kind of reasonable amount of time, is just give Russia whatever they want and just tell Ukraine to kick rocks, because Russia holds all the cards. They're the ones who are they're in the driver's seat on this, and we don't have any leverage. We've already sanctioned them to death. We put sanctions on everything. The oil prices are crashing. I haven't really seen that that's affecting their economy too much. They also, I mean, they are exporting oil, and I don't know. We'll have to see. I haven't seen anything materialize on
But
that front
Russia's
saying,
been
"Oh,
working
Russia's losing
on
tons of
on
money on
producing
oil."
their
But
own goods as well.
yeah, their economy has grown since the beginning of the war, which is not usually the case during a war. Usually, I mean, it's not that it's going to shrink. It's just that you're on a war footing. You're not producing things that are necessarily for sale by the people, but they've been able to kind of set up their own, like, this counter economy, this parallel economy with China and India, and they're still doing trade with many of these countries. So they're doing fine, and they have their demands. They've made them very clear. We're not willing to meet them. They want Ukraine not to be in NATO. That's
Why does Trump want?
non-negotiable.
Does Trump still want them in NATO? Is that like the holdup?
No, I don't think so. I
Because
think it's
that's
just
never going to
that
happen.
he wants a deal, and he also he probably in the long term wants to end this thing and then arm Ukraine to the teeth so it doesn't happen again. Russia's also not going to go for that. They don't want to fight this war again. They don't want to deal with it 4, 5, 10 years in the future. They want Ukraine just completely neutered. They want them to be a rump state. They want to dictate their political system. They want to be the
I
ones
don't
who
think they have much of
choose
an
their.
option. They don't have any men left, so
Well, that's the problem, is that Trump is, I think, starting to realize that we don't have any real chips. We don't have any real negotiating. All we can, unless we give them everything, then they're just going to continue to wage the war. And unless we want to get into a war with Russia, there's really not a whole lot we can do.
well, and
This
England and
is
France have tried to drag us into it.
well, yeah, they're going to support the war. They're trying to raise like $800 billion to beef up. Or
Start a
they've got a
GoFundMe.
$800 billion loan from the European Union that they can give out to different member states so that they can build up their militaries. But then, Italy blocked it, and since it's got to be unanimous, the whole thing's a mess.
The
It never
EU is
should have
going to break
happened.
apart as well, eventually, but that's a whole
Yeah,
other thing.
Trump was right that this never would have happened if he was president, and maybe not because Putin was afraid of him or anything. Maybe just because Putin figured, well, Trump we get along pretty okay. I'm not in really a dangerous position here. He's not. He's Trump's been talking bad about NATO for years. He's talked about leaving NATO, and that would be,
From,
I
from
think Russia would be fine with
what
that.
I've seen from interviews with other presidents like Clinton when he was talking about Putin and stuff is basically he's like Putin is very clear. And if he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. If he said he's not going to do something, he won't. He's very frank and he tells you right where his lines are. And I think that's what happened with Trump. And so he probably would have told Trump, Ukraine going in NATO is my line. Non-negotiable. I'm not joking. I'm being 100% serious. And I think Trump would have respected that at the very least and negotiated other things or whatnot. But
Well, because now I don't know what Trump was thinking, 4 years ago, or at the beginning of this. But the idea that they were going to peel away Russia from China, I think that's still an objective of theirs, but there's not really any indication that that's
how are you going to
likely to
do
happen.
that by making them both angry at you?
I mean, they are natural enemies. Russia and China have always been enemies. Even when they were both communist states, there was like a short time when they were friendly, but then there was the breakup that they had, I think in like the 1970s, 80s. It's just I don't really see, like, but they are connected. They are all part of that Eurasian continent. Their economies are very, directly intertwined. Russia has a huge amount of production capacity in terms of raw materials. China has a lot of manufacturing capacity. So they get those materials from Russia. China makes them. Russia will import them. Russia's working on, building out their own industrial capacity. So that's a relationship that's not going anywhere. It would be nice if we could have Russia to help us balance out China. That's something we should have done in 1991 when the Soviet Union collapsed and Russia kind of was extending a little bit of okay, like, let's just
The real
bygones be bygones. And then the US was like, nah, we're gonna keep moving NATO to the east,
we
and
just
we're
hate
not gonna.
Russia.
Well, yeah,
The
we just, and that was a mistake. That was a big mistake.
the reality of modern day is basically any country is as much of an enemy as we want to make them one, basically. So we want to make Russia our enemy. We really don't like Russia for some reason. We still want them to be our enemy. And so we never want to actually like be friendly towards them. We just have some chip on our shoulder that prevents us from actually building a good relationship with Russia. That's anywhere beyond the stage of just like I'm keeping an eye on them. And
No, I
so
mean, you can never fully trust them, but that's just the state of international relations. But you can have a cold peace or some sort of alliance. It's just that we are ideologically driven.
we
Russia is not a liberal democracy.
but we also blame
And
everything on
so,
them too.
well, we've been doing that for
Yeah.
years. I think just the media, right?
Hmm.
Baby boomers grew up on this steady diet of Russia's evil. Russia wants to destroy us. Every villain was Russian. Every bad guy was Russian on TV. And so I think they just have internalized that, and they've just refused to see that the situation has changed. Also, the fact that Russia is not a liberal democracy, there's an ideological reason. We have felt like it is our duty to travel around the world and deliver democracy to all the oppressed peoples of the world. In Russia, democracy, they've tried it. They have
They're
some
not that
sort of
interested.
version of it. They're not that interested, right? It's a country that seems to require a little bit stronger hand to govern. That's fine. Why shouldn't we let that happen, right? As long as they're not invading their neighbors, which they are now, but for reasons we've already discussed. Uh, Yeah, what does it matter? What does it matter what Russia does in Russia?
Well, isn't there that
What
theory
does it
that
matter what
basically
China
like
does in China?
we need everyone to be a democracy for it to be stable?
That's
But
democratic peace theory. I mean,
yeah,
the problem is it's
I'm saying isn't that our incentivization? I don't think that works, but isn't that like
yeah,
our
I mean the
reasoning for
idea is
trying to
that
force it on
democracies
everyone?
don't go to war, and I don't know if that's necessarily true. Part of the problem is that you had this US hegemon over everybody for decades, and they forced everybody that was inside their sphere of influence to be a democracy. And so, yeah, France and Germany haven't gone to war because they're under the umbrella of the United States. If they went to war, the US would put an end to it. But, and then there's states outside of that sphere of influence who claim to be democracies, but then they go to war with each other. And then we just say, well, they're not really democracies. Like Russia and Ukraine are technically both democracies officially, but like not really. So it's like, how do you define democracy? And is it just that the United States has so much power over the whole world? So if we pull back, I do predict that countries like France and Germany will be at war again. It'll take a little bit of time, but there'll be a security competition because they're all going to want to. Britain, Germany, France are all going to want to be kind of the preeminent power on the continent. They're going to want to lead the coalition against Russia. They want to be, the European army. They're trying to federalize. I don't think it's going to happen, but if France tries to lead that, Germany's not going to abide by that. They're going to want to be the ones who are kind of heading up the military operations. So they all build up, and then that creates the paradox of deterrence, right? Your neighbor becomes very strong to deter you from doing anything, but then now they're stronger than you, so you need to build up so that you can deter them, and then eventually you just keep
Let's
spiraling out of
all build our
control.
militaries up to fight Russia, and then they're like, "Yours is a little big there, Germany. Maybe you want to."
Yeah,
Let's okay. Now I'm a little scared of you, and now I'm a little scared of Poland, and then I like totally forget
exactly.
about
So
Russia. And just
if the US leaves the continent, then that is what's going to happen, which is why I don't even think Russia wants the US to leave the continent. Like, as much as Russia doesn't like that NATO is aligned against them, the US present on the continent really is like the number one guarantor that nobody goes and tries to take a bite out of Russia again because the US won't allow it. If all the European powers got together, if France and Germany, or if they had, if they started a war with each other, Russia would inevitably get dragged into it in some way. They always seem to end up, them and Britain, right? Stuff starts happening on the continent, and Britain and Russia have to kind of balance it out. And they don't want that, right? They're like, oh, so at least Lavrov says, so far as we can trust him, he seems to be a relatively straight shooter. He's like, no, we don't want the U.S. to leave the continent. Like, we kind of like them here because it keeps the Europeans from going crazy again.
well, it keeps because they're all civilized under authority. Basically, is like you're not able to do crazy stuff. You're not able to go back to like being warmongering pagans. Like you all just want to invade each other every other week. Like we're not gonna let that happen. Like you're gonna be peaceful. We're gonna have great trade. If we totally pull out, that's why like being totally isolationist is not great because everything falls apart without us. Um, but we do have to start pulling back and like focus on our internal problems. So there's, I think, a balance there that needs to be made.
Yeah, we don't need to be everywhere. We should have been pivoting towards China a long time ago, but we have not done that. And I don't know if we're ever going to fully make it. Going to make it, at least not in time. I think another piece of information that Trump's gotten is that we're not capable of defending Taiwan. I really don't think that we have the capacity to wage a war that far
The
away.
chip deal sealed that for me in his thinking. Is he's like, we got to get the
Exactly.
chips out of there because we're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah, we have to be able to make sure we can get chips in case China invades Taiwan, which they probably will do, and we're not going to do anything about it. Now
No,
we keep posturing as though we will defend them. Trump actually kind of broke strategic. We have this policy of strategic ambiguity in terms of Taiwan because we don't want Taiwan to think that we'll come to their aid no matter what. So they agitate against China and make things worse. But we also don't want China to think that we won't do anything. And so then they make a move. So we're kind of like, oh, well, maybe we will, maybe we won't. Who knows? Trump the other day said that, oh, we'll defend Taiwan, right? Trying to send a message to China, hey, back off, don't do anything. But if China calls that bluff, then it's over. I mean,
yeah.
there's not really a whole lot we can do about it.
No, I agree with that. I don't think we can do anything meaningful to protect Taiwan. That does not end up resulting in like a direct war with China. Which again,
Right.
we need to start building our medical equipment here, because isn't it like it's like over 90% is made in China.
That's a
So
significant amount. Like
it's
all the two things that I think are most important are insulin and other diabetes related medicine, and then thyroid medicine. And between those two, like diabetics and people suffering from hypo or hyperthyroidism, it's like 50% of the US population. Both of those are fatal if left untreated. So if
you
China
can't
were
just have
to,
like a third of the population die if China just cuts off the taps.
right,
And then they're
right.
like, "Oh,
So
we'll just build an insulin factory in like what, like a week?"
yeah, in a week or two, people's prescriptions are only for like a month or whatever. I mean, I'm sure we have some. We would ration. We would try to really like stretch it, but it would be a disaster. Same thing with the synthetic thyroid, right? I mean, that would be really really rough if we had to navigate through that. We'd be begging other countries for stuff, and we'd be emergency production, just passing it out like candy. But yeah, so we don't want to be in that position. Nobody should be in that position. So we need to start making sure that we can suit at least most of our needs here, or with friendly countries that, you know, if Canada is the one producing insulin, okay, fine. Like they're always going to be a partner as much as we've been, kind of aggroing them lately. And if they don't cooperate, we can just go force them to, right? Like they're so weak, we could just be like, all right,
We could just take it.
just take it, right? Well, yeah, we'll just take it. China, you can't do that.
No, not
No.
at all. And we wouldn't be able to take the chip factories in Taiwan either, and so that's why I think Trump said the goal is about we would make about 40% off the bat once the
Yeah,
factory's
we'd
up,
have about 40% of the world's share, which
which would be plenty for us.
probably would suit our need. Yeah. So, and then we can, but that's another, we talked earlier about this institutional knowledge. That's one of those areas where that's critical because chips are extraordinarily complicated, right? I couldn't even begin to imagine how much work I have a friend who works in chip manufacturing, and he would just casually try to explain stuff to me, and I'd just be like, what the hell are you saying? So very complicated. You can't just train an engineer to be a chip manufacturer, from what I have been told. You can't just go to engineering school and learn how to make chips and then go work for NVIDIA or TSMC. It takes years to then train you up with proprietary stuff and that institutional knowledge from 60 years of making microchips, you know, the first generation, second generation, third generation. So we would probably need, and I think we are doing this, we probably need to import a lot of Taiwanese people
I think
to actually build
most
the
of the
chips.
workers at the factory will probably be Taiwanese to start, and then we'll
At
like
least the
slowly start
at least the
seeping in.
engineers and the
But
leadership, right?
I think Trump will insist on Americans getting in there.
Yeah, we need to be able to manufacture those things ourselves, but
And
it's
I'd
going to
say
take
keep them here.
years.
Like, if China invades Taiwan, like, yeah, we can keep. They can stay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care.
That's an immigrant benefit that is actually like a good one. Is
I'm
bringing in real skilled labor.
I'm told I'm soft on immigration. Some of my more radical friends, because this is one instance where I'm like, well, we probably do need some immigrants, right? Like we don't need
What's the
mass
harm in
amounts.
2,000 Taiwanese?
Well,
In a country
exactly,
of
right.
300
It's like
million, especially if they're
cost
the ones
benefit.
making all of the chips for your country. It's like
Right,
probably gonna have
exactly.
them.
I don't want half a billion Indians here, but if 2,000 Taiwanese people move to a town in Arizona so that they can spool up our chip manufacturing industry, then cool, fine. Like that's, yeah, whatever. You want to give them citizenship at the end as like a reward to really make sure that they're doing good work.
That's
Okay, yeah,
fine.
fine. We as a culture, we as a people, we can absorb 2,000 Taiwanese people. It's not a big deal. That's it. That's all I want. I don't want to then say, well, now we need to bring in 500 million Indians to make the chips. I don't want that. But
I saw something that Elon posted about like immigration or something, or like he was talking about like devaluing wages, like infinite immigration. It's like, weren't didn't
yeah,
you
he
just like
completely
didn't you crash out super hard like a month ago about
he
infinite
said that mass
Indians?
immigration was bad. Well, I think Elon Musk is, I think, a very insecure person, and I think he does care a lot about what people think about him. He's painted himself as kind of king nerd. He's, like I said, Big Bang Theory, right? That's where all this shit goes back to. He was on there. He was
Ground
worshipped. He was
Zero.
like worshipped by nerds and redditors for so long because he was saving the world. He was a futurist. He's like Tony Stark, but in real life. Um, Now he's fallen from grace with them. He's been able to ingratiate himself with the right wing, who's interested in space exploration and manufacturing, bringing just like making the country great, right? So he's popular with them, but that really hurt his credibility.
Then
Saying,
he immediately, yeah,
and it wasn't
destroyed
just,
that.
hey, we don't actually want Indians, Elon. You're gonna have to like figure something else out here. You're gonna have to open up some technical schools to train Americans or something because we don't want a bunch of Indians coming over here. And then he just loses his mind and is like, literally, fuck yourself in the face, just like on my birthday.
That was
On my
funny.
birthday, I'm getting flamed by Elon Musk.
Well, so
I'm
did
like, well,
Vivek. He crashed out so hard he got sent back to Ohio, like a fate
yeah,
worse
yeah.
than death.
He literally got
But
banished from the Trump administration and was sent back to Ohio.
he's probably gonna be governor of Ohio, but he'll never be president. You will never be president, because people don't want the infinite Indians. And he basically said Americans are dumb and lazy. And it's like, okay, well, you made an environment where they're dumb and lazy.
Hey, you need to watch
Train
more
them to be better.
Whiplash.
Don't just say
You
like,
need to
well,
you need to play violin 40 hours a week, and then you need to study
no
all
more
night and watch
sleepovers.
Whiplash.
That one was funny. No sleepovers. It's like, man,
Dude,
the
the sleepovers
projection,
thing. The sleepovers are like a
they're vital.
common punching bag. They're like a common target. I mean, you've seen that
I
obviously,
haven't
but
seen
then
no, I haven't seen that being
haven't you
common.
seen like every once
Who
in a
complains
while,
about it? Like what demographic?
uh, like rad trad women? Because every once in
Why?
a while, I'll like find myself in mommy Twitter because I'll like the last
Because he's
person
looking
you
up mommy ASMR and he got sidetracked.
no, because usually like the last like post or so you respond to, it's like, oh, you like that, and then it shows you more. And so like I'll respond to some thought that's like using her children as a prop, and I'll be like, I'll just like flame her a little bit, and then it's like all of a sudden it's all like this mom content, like this trad mom content, and so they're like they're they just rail against sleepovers, and
Why?
it's like
What's the basis?
because you don't know who's there and they're worried about like, their children being preyed upon, and it's like I understand that you shouldn't just like,
Then you host,
well, but that's the problem is that
but
they're
none of them want
all
to host. But
none
shouldn't
of them
you all know
trust.
each other? Like, shouldn't you? This is so weird. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. I'm trying to think about the first time I ever had a sleepover, and I don't really remember when it was, maybe second or third grade. um I don't know what the best age to allow sleepovers or not, but you know, uh, my parents, they knew all the kids and they knew their parents. It was a, Catholic school. They all went to events and stuff together. And so never like I never had a problem. I never knew anybody that had a problem in that group because again, you vet people, right? It's like, oh yeah, no, we know them. They're good. They're good people. And maybe it's different if you've got daughters. Like, oh, it's like
Yeah.
you're afraid that your 12-year-old daughter is going over to a friend's house and they have like two teenage boys and an uncle that lives with them and what it's like, okay, like be discerning, obviously, and maybe there is a double standard that you need to follow with men and women, boys and girls.
But it's
That's
also like
unfortunate.
if it's like a group of like 10 of them, like the likelihood that something happens is diminished as well. And I
Right.
don't know,
Yeah.
be
So
discerning. But I don't know, the I've seen that with a lot of stuff, like the rad trad moms go like they're just like they're the new generation of like X is satanic, but it's not actually satanic this time. A lot of stuff is satanic, but the stuff they talk about is just like they're like any school that's not homeschooling, like satanic, like Catholic schools, satanic. Like they hate normalcy. They really do. Um, and I've just seen them crash out about things. They get really, really specific about things that really don't matter that much. It'd be like field trips are evil. It's like, what?
no, yeah. Catholic women are the like the greatest issue the church faces, I think. Truly. I'm
Probably.
legit.
I'm against homeschooling, honestly.
I am too. I don't think I think it's bad. I think it's bad for kids.
Well,
I've never met a normal or well-adjusted homeschooler. I've met they're like on a spectrum.
yeah.
There's like better and worse, but even the best ones.
But the best ones are self-aware that they missed out
They're
on.
self-aware, but they're just something is a little off, and even though they're trying to amend that, they just can't do it. They just can't figure it out.
The important part about socialization for kids are the things you like can't control. Like the things that matter is like everybody, like the generational thing, to go back to the beginning about Minecraft, like everybody playing cool math games on the computer. I still have people reference that. I still have people reference playing Halo. I still have people reference
playing Halo in the library,
watching SpongeBob, or field trips, or like, did you guys have X kind of field trip at your school? And there's like unanimous behaviors and experiences that you have, like the feeling of getting up early to go to a school field trip, like the dew in the morning, and like the feeling of, but even like situations that homeschool parents would remove their children from. So like homeschool parents would, the daughter or son would say, I don't like that family, I don't like that kid, we don't get along. Okay, you don't have to interact with them. Versus school, it's like your desk partner is that dumb girl in class you hate, but you have to work with her. You have to do a group project. You fight with your friends. You fight with the teachers. Like, you're learning unavoidable experiences, not only like the positive, but the negatives. Like, how do you navigate social situations? How do you build a good reputation? And I think the homeschooling parents, either they protect their kids initially from negative experiences like that, or they, as soon as the kid complains, they'll like pull them out of it. And so I don't like homeschooling. And like a lot of them, if I talk to them, they'll say, well, maybe like a co-op would work. It's like, you have a bunch of parents, and I'm like, yeah, co-op, like where you get a bunch like parents that teach different subjects, and you have like 20 kids in the school, in like the class. And like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. So like a Catholic school, like that's exactly what that is. And then they're like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, just pick a private school and send your kids to a good one. You've created private schooling. Congratulations. You like
the Catholic schools. Yeah, if you kind of,
they are getting better. The schools,
the Catholic schools are, a lot of them are not worth.
But if you all like, if you are with a group of like parents who are all going to homeschool anyways, and you invade the Catholic school and you like start demanding things and like are really up on the school, like they'll capitulate. Like they'll actually start teaching good faith-based education. One thing about the Catholic schools is they're terrible about educating doctrinally. And part of the reason for that is like for a long time, they didn't have the numbers. So they let in students who were not Catholic, like Hindus and Jews and, stuff, and Muslims, and who would go there for the good education. And so then they would like water down the Catholicism, because then it would make those kids uncomfortable or whatever. So that's a problem that's been remediated by the fact that I've heard a lot of schools have waiting lists now, like long waiting lists for Catholic students to get in. And it's like, yeah, just kick out anybody who's not Catholic, make the curriculum solid. That's my theory. Like instead of running away from the problem, actually, because it is a local issue, like a specific school, you have a major impact on it as like a parent. You could actually like get in there and really influence things.
Yeah, it's not like a national issue. Everybody focuses on the national issues for everything, right. But nobody goes to their city council meetings. I don't go to my city council meetings, but I'm just kind of like a transient here. I'm just here for a couple of years for school, but yeah, nobody ever actually tries to affect change in their local municipality. They're on Twitter, talking about what Trump's doing, which is exactly what we're doing, but whatever. I feel like I've got a little bit better perspective. A little bit more nuance, a little bit more education on this.
Yeah, we just make both sides mad.
Yeah, no, the people in the comments they're not happy about our homeschool take.
Oh, they're not happy about the homeschool take.
I'm sorry. I understand public schools trash.
I see the results.
Right?
You will know, as Jesus said, you will know them by their fruits.
Right.
And the fruits are bad.
I just think like getting fucked up by public school is a better fate than being fucked up by homeschool.
My argument has always been, I would rather have a kid who has the capacity to develop themselves later on than like be totally stunted in their growth. Like, yeah, they go to public school and they get messed up a little bit, but they internally, if you have good faith and good morals and they have social skills and they have like the ability to navigate the world, they can then take on the world when you're gone. Versus like the homeschool kids where like, yeah, they're protected and sheltered for 18 years, but then you release them in the world and they're like a caged animal. They will never be able to fully integrate. You just cannot make up for those lost years. We know that scientifically.
They can't make it on the outside.
They cannot make it on the outside, and then they just go wacky. And that's why I've seen ones who are like they end up worse than public school kids. Who public school kids get a little wacky, normal amount of wacky for 4 years, then they go to college, and then they kind of become normal. I know homeschool kids who like they just go crazy. They get too much freedom too fast. But there's really no way to prevent that from happening. So I don't know. I don't know. I see the problems with the Catholic women and certain things they find issue with. I do see those sometimes, and I think it's entertaining. I don't know. Do you have any more examples of those, like the homeschooling or the sleepovers?
No, I mean nothing. It's just women on the internet typically are not probably not worth engaging with. Like I probably shouldn't like roast them on Twitter, but it's like it's so hard.
You crash out on Twitter a lot.
I was crashing out earlier.
I would never be that mean. You're so mean.
I was crashing out earlier because I kept getting comments when I was talking about why it's important to bring manufacturing back to this country, and they're always the response is always the same. Oh, you want other people to do that. You don't want to do that kind of work. You want other people to. And it's like, yeah, I don't want to work in a factory. Like not to be elitist or classist, like I'm college educated, I'm in graduate school, like I don't need to work in a factory.
But some people do.
Some people do. I'm lucky, right? I'm privileged. I've got the brain, I've got the wherewithal, I've got the means, the family backing, the education to do this, right? Okay, cool, great, awesome, right? Good for me. A lot of people don't have that, obviously, as we see in middle America. I mean, I do live in middle America, but so I see it. I see it all the time. These people, they're poor. There's no opportunities. There's just abandoned factories everywhere. And it's like, what is the fate that you're condemning them to? It's like,
no, this is a point I've been talking about this week. Is we've created an environment that is so meritocratic, it has become basically full circle to like cavemen. Where like if you're not born strong and smart, if you're not 7-foot Grug with his big club, you just will never succeed. And when you make it all about like everybody at every level has to compete against everybody else and work as hard as everybody else because there's no opportunities, like you said on Twitter, it's McDonald's or like what'd you say? It was like McDonald's or college degree or something. It's like
no, that's the problem. It's like
if you make everybody compete for the college jobs, of course the dumb people are going to lose. And it's like people are born dumb. There's nothing they can do about that. And I'm like, that's rude to say, but there are people who are just not smart, and it's our obligation to take care of them and create an environment where they can succeed and they can find their purpose that God has called them to, which is obviously not to be president or CEO. But we just take that away from them. And we just say like, oh, you weren't born smart. Well, you're just going to be like totally impoverished. You'll never afford a house. You'll never afford a car unless you work like 10 times harder, which is just not feasible.
Unless you become, it's like, it's like, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with working at McDonald's, but like, let's be honest here. Like that's something that like a young person should do as like in between college semesters, or like as a high school job, or like while they're finding, they're getting certified. Like, I see these old people working at
like a perfect world should be high school level jobs only.
Yeah, I see these old people working at McDonald's and they just look miserable, and I feel so bad for them, right? So it's like, at least if you were working in a factory, you see that on Twitter they're showing this AI generated video of these fat people in like a sweatshop. First off, showing their contempt for the working class, but also that's not what modern factories are. They are technical, they are high skill, they are high paying, because a lot of it is using computers. A lot of it's like CNC stuff. And so there's a lot that goes into it. And a lot of it could be automated, and it won't bring back nearly as many jobs as we had back in 1945. But that's okay, because we can still create a middle class economy around that. And it's not just that, right? It's that you have a manufacturing plant that employs, there's only a few thousand people in this city. It's not a it's a like a small city, and so it's like if a few thousand people are employed at the plant, well, they need doctors, they need uh, they need shoe stores, they need everything. It's the economy that builds up around it, and that's just gone. So if you don't have like an industrial core, you lose all of the subsequent service stuff, because then the whole thing is just a service economy, which can kind of be done anywhere, and eventually it gets like centralized in cities, and then people get left behind. And so it's unfortunate they don't have these. A lot of these people don't have the brains to go and make it in a big city and get a college degree, and that's not their fault, and so they shouldn't be condemned to working at Dollar Tree for the rest of their life
Right.
because they can't afford to go to college. And so it's
No,
it's very bizarre
there was
that these
something you
liberals,
said.
that's their point.
There's something you said before, which is like this rage baits the boomers more than anything. Is you should only have to put in average effort to have the life that your parents have. If you're born into a certain class, you should only have to put in average effort to maintain that class. And that makes
Right. I mean,
boomers
that's the
so
ideal.
mad. They're like, no, you have to work 20 times harder.
Yeah, because they totally work 20 times harder,
But
right?
average is average. If you're average, and it's like, yeah, sorry, it is somewhat dependent on your birth. If you're born in the middle class, the expectation is there. You go to schools that expect you to go to college, you're on the track. That's where we were. You put in average effort for your class, you go, you get a college degree, a normal one, you get a normal paying job, you are able to afford. This is now we get to where the part it's theoretical is. You'd be able to afford a house that costs the same as your parents, you'd be able to afford a car that costs the same as your parents. Now you have to pay 5 or 10 times more for those things. That's what makes it unreasonable. So now you have to work 10 times harder than your parents or your grandparents did to stay in the same class. Is it fair that poor people have to work harder? No. But that's just stuff that happens in life. But instead of right now where they have to work 20 times harder, we could just make it where they have to work twice as hard. That could be a goal we could reach for. But it just makes the boomers mad because you're not lifting yourself up by your bootstraps and you sound like a victim.
No, but that's how they all sound when they're complaining about their stock portfolio. And again, it's down 4%. I saw this one boomer who was like, "I've lost $3,200 since
Did you
Trump's
sell?
tariffs." I'm like you really? I don't know, man. If you're bitching about $3,200, you get bigger problems because 4% dip. $3,200 is only 4%. That's not gonna last you all retirement, dog. You gotta get your money up, dude.
It's ridiculous. But yeah, it's like they have disdain for poor people. They have disdain for young people. Like they really have this, I don't know, it's something specific to the boomers because like every parent should want their kids to do better than them, but the boomers like they want to make their lives harder.
It's an inferiority complex. Their fathers fought in World War II, and because of certain geopolitical and other realities, those men were held up as like the heroes of the entire world. There was so much father worship and grandfather worship around the narrative of World War II.
Be him.
You'll never, yeah. And so they kind of have this inferiority complex. Now there was Vietnam, which was a disaster and didn't really accomplish anything. And I've got boomers who are like, we fought in Vietnam, and I'm always like, did you fight in Vietnam? And they never respond.
I have seen
never respond. But yeah, they didn't really have a moral crusade. Their moral crusade was what, letting women be whores. Like, we got to have birth control and we got to legalize homosexuality and whatever. So
good. So
they talk about Woodstock as though it was like, this was like the pinnacle of human experience. This was like our enlightening moment.
Even
and it was literally just
orchestrated by the CIA.
Yeah, and it was just an orgy, right? It'd be like if we talked about Coachella that way. It's like Coachella, like, it's like shut the fuck up.
Like
Woodstock happened like 60 years ago.
Movie about being the pinnacle of humanity
for 60 years.
For 60
right?
years.
So their moral crusade was, they were kind of in on the civil rights thing. They protested against the Vietnam War. That's the other thing, is that they always say, well, we fought the Vietnam War, but a lot of them were protesting against it. So that's their legacy, right? Is destroying the economy, and then like a couple of possible like these moral crusades that they wanted. So now they're on their final moral crusade. This is their moment. They're fighting fascism.
Well, young people hate everything
Hitler.
they did. They hate all of the crusades they went on.
Yeah, no, they destroyed the country, right?
Yeah.
But
They hate everything you
now,
stood for.
so now you see them and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna protest. Like, this is my chance. We're fighting fascism, just like my father did in 1944." It's like, okay, yeah, Donald burning down a Tesla plant and fire keying people's cars. Yeah, you're really fighting the Nazis here, guys. So
Yeah.
that's, I think, the pathology of the boomer is that because they're so inferior, they feel so inferior. And I think they know deep down, like that's where a lot of this white guilt comes from. Is they know that they don't really deserve the position that they're in. It's just that this was like just the circumstances of their birth. They just were born into this greatest time of economic prosperity the world had ever seen. So they feel guilty. So then they have to go on these moral crusades to justify themselves.
And I will say there have been some good boomers who have like realized this, the self-aware ones, but
No,
with every
good
group
ones.
there are ones who double down. And it's the ones who are doubling down who are the ones who are like then encouraging people to live the same lifestyle they did or to make the same mistakes they did. And it's not beneficial because it just makes them feel better, right?
No, I think I'm hoping that the ultimate plan here is to bring back manufacturing into this country so Mike Lindell can expand his pillow business in
I see where this
preparation
is going.
for the day of the pillow, right?
Yeah.
The day of the pillow approacheth, and Mike Lindell's like furiously sewing pillows to make it happen.
What happened? He fell off.
I think the whole January 6th thing.
He blew
Trump
up
just
and
didn't
then
want to
fell
be.
off.
Well, he kept on. Didn't he just keep on saying that he had proof that
Yeah,
Joe
he
Biden
kept
stole the
saying
election
that,
and that he didn't manifest?
Yeah.
I mean, he stole it, obviously.
Anytime a Republican, like, didn't his press secretary just said something that Doge found something and it's huge and explosive. Anytime a Republican says that, you know you're gonna get nothing. You're gonna get nothing. Whenever they're like something big is coming, nothing big is coming. It's your key indicator. Like the Epstein files, the January 6th stuff. Like it just nothing ever happens with that stuff. What really matters is the slow cultural crusade that's done by regular people, more so than any of these like, oh, big announcement next Tuesday. It's like, if it's big, why is it waiting like a week? Like, okay.
The Epstein files that they made a big deal about with all these right-wing influencers, and then it was more redacted than what was already publicly available. And then Libs of TikTok, she was hanging out with Kristi Noem today doing like deportations.
That's weird. Do
that?
Do you find it weird that they're like getting the influencers in on it? Like,
yeah, I think they're trying to.
It doesn't
make
people
it look feel like they're winning.
To me,
well, Kristi Noem looks like a fool. She's wearing body armor that's too big, and then she's, it's like she's ready to go on a raid, but then she's like all dolled up in makeup.
Was it in a big city?
Face on. I don't even know where it was.
Because I would say
she was afraid of
holding
a gun.
She'd be afraid of the dogs.
A gun. And she's holding a gun and was like pointed at another guy's head, and it's like, I hope that thing's not loaded because that doesn't look like one of her fellow officers.
She was just doing like that's not safe.
But it was like a short-barreled AR. I'm like, that's just, I don't know. It's weird when women behave in that way. Period. But then also, like, she's not alone.
It's all posturing.
Oh yeah. Well, she's always been like that. Remember her book where she bragged about killing her dog? That was one of my first live streams. Is like when that happened, I was like, what the fuck is wrong with these women? Like these Republican women.
They
like,
have to act tough.
I need to be masculine. This is a great idea.
What they think is tough.
Yeah, she like put it in her book that she shot her dog and then she shot like the goat.
No,
also.
she like shot her dog and then she was like, "This is a perfect time to take out that goat I hate." So then she like brought the goat out to the gravel pit with like one shell and then shot it and like kind of missed. So I think she hit it somewhere in the side, so it was bleeding out and like screaming in agony. And then she had to like walk back to her truck to get another shell to shoot it and like put it out of its misery. It's like, dude, lady, why are you writing this in your book about like how you should be president?
They begged her editor, they begged her, like, please, Kristi, we have to take this out. We cannot have this in here. You know what's funny? I got into an argument with somebody about this because they're like, no, you don't know what it's like out in South Dakota. Like, they're, it's just the reality. It's just like what they have to do. And I'm like,
no,
I don't think if you're the governor of South Dakota and you like live in Pierre or wherever she was, I don't think you need to behave in this way. I think there's probably an animal shelter. You don't need to kill a dog just because it's kind of annoying.
At most,
But
you'll have to drive an hour, which is like, yeah, that's a pain, but like to say
but
that I had no option, it's out on a farm. We just shoot animals and just like throw them out. Like,
what was funny is that I thought it was ridiculous. I'm like, that's stupid. Why would you ever brag about that? You have to know that people are going to be offended. Like it's gonna, like it offends my sensibilities, and I'm not like a big bleeding heart, but like I like dogs. I don't think you should just like shoot
dogs are special. They're
a
special
golden. What
animals.
was it
You
like a
don't
was
do
it like
that
a
to dogs.
what was it like a German Shepherd or something? Like, you don't
No,
shoot
I
like a
think it was
1-year-old dog because it's kind of annoying.
yeah, it was like wasn't she got a dog that I don't think was a
Or no, it
farm
was a
dog.
hunting dog. It was
Yeah,
a
it was a
hunting
hunting
dog.
dog that wasn't doing. You know, she was saying, yeah, it wasn't like trained well, and then so she's like,
It's like, who's
"Wow,
not doing
this
the
dog
training?
is
And
not fulfilling my needs. I should kill
well, and
it."
you need to get them from the proper lines. So like you can get I think it was actually like a German wire hair or short
But
hair
it wasn't from
something,
a proper.
but it wasn't from a family that institutional knowledge, right? That's been bred and has hunted their whole lives. Golden retrievers are used for duck hunting. If you don't get one from the proper lineage, it's
Yeah,
just
it's just gonna be
it's
a
useless for that. It's just a
dumb
pet.
golden retriever, the cute
Dumb
ones.
which is fine. We love golden retrievers, but
But it's not gonna do
same
what you
problem
want
there.
it to do. Yeah, basically.
No, and it's not the dog's fault. It's your fault for getting the wrong dog. And so, but what was funny is that I was like, why would you ever think this is a good idea? I had a job interview in South Dakota, and so I went to South Dakota, and this was like right after that happened, right after it came out. It happened years ago, but it just her book came out, and like I made a joke about it because he was talking about their governor and whatever, and I was like, yeah, she's like, shut up. And what was funny is like all the people that I was with, they were kind of like showing me around. They took me to Mount Rushmore. They really wanted me out there. Um, they like they understood. They weren't like they understood why I was like my sensibilities were offended, but they weren't phased at all. They didn't care. Like these multiple people, they're like, yeah, like that's just like how it is out here. It's like whatever. And so it's like, okay, so there is still like a difference of mentality between different Americans. I don't think they're evil people. It's just they are much more
But
isolated.
it's
They
not
they don't
something
they
you would
don't
brag
care.
about. Especially,
Not
and you wouldn't double
not
down if you said something and get like there's a cultural barrier. I'm even like I'm very much like, okay, you did something, you don't think it was a good idea in hindsight, like that's totally fine, we'll let it go. I'm very much of like letting things go if they're over like a certain period, but then to double down repeatedly and like go on the media and go on this big tour about how like that's what makes her qualified to, like she was saying stuff like that's what makes her tough, that's what makes her qualified to be president. And I'm like, lady, this is not a good look. Like you don't be doubling down on this.
Well, it makes you look deranged because it's like
Right.
you're gonna have the nuclear codes and you like kill a dog and then you're like, what else can I kill?
What just makes you're
It's
you're
just
not
like,
socially aware. It's like you say a joke and nobody laughs, and then you just like keep repeating it. It's like
yeah, the fact
they're
the
gonna
fact
think
that you
they're gonna think
thought
you're crazy.
the fact that you thought that was a good idea, that you thought that was a good line to put in your book, shows that there's like a serious lack of judgment or like a
And like I
misunderstanding of
said, if
social
she
norms.
was then told that and then said, you know what, I was wrong, or even just said nothing at all. It's fine to say nothing at all, but then to go on a big like I'm proud I shot my dog tour,
Yeah, she did.
that is not
Like,
appropriate. It's not what you should be doing.
I guess she figured that Republicans wouldn't care, and it's like, well, yeah, maybe Republicans in South Dakota, but you also need to win You want to win Michigan? Do you want to win Wisconsin? We like
Do you want
dogs here.
anybody centrist to vote for you? It's not even political. Everybody likes dogs. They're just special. Like dogs and even cats now. It's like you wouldn't just shoot your cat and like brag about it. That's just not a thing that would be palatable to most
No,
Americans.
no.
So like, yeah, just know your audience. But yeah, all these women like acting tough. I think a lot of women are not going to be voted into office as much.
I'm done voting for women. I'm done. Like I did it.
I'll vote for Obama for a third term before.
I will no. I voted for a few women like local stuff because I wasn't really like the last several months have just made me realize like especially like the Supreme Court decision the other day where Amy Coney Barrett voted with the liberal justices because apparently deporting MS-13 gang members is wrong. I realized that women just their mentality is different when it comes to politics. They believe in like fairness and sharing and not being mean. they're not wired towards governance. They are wired towards motherhood, and so that compels them to this like suicidal empathy. And I don't want anything to do with this. So
Well, we've
I will
talked
not
about it
vote. I will
before,
not
though.
vote for women anymore. I will. You're running for mayor, Republican woman, Democrat man. Maybe I won't vote for the guy, but I'm just not going to vote. I'm just going to leave that blank. I'm not voting for women. I am not voting for women
I
in
think that'll
primaries.
happen.
If you give me a female candidate for president as a Republican, I will not vote for her.
I
I
don't think we're gonna
will
get one.
not vote
I
for
don't
her.
think we're gonna get one for that exact reason. Is we've seen twice women can't win, and also like it's just not gonna be, even having a woman vice president in 4 years.
I will not vote for a ticket that has a woman
is
vice
not
president
going to be
because
popular.
that's an obvious setup for them to kill the guy and then put a woman in charge to try to break the glass ceiling. Because Gerald Ford predicted this. He said
No, we're
a
gonna
man's going to get
reinforce that
in.
glass ceiling.
Gerald Ford predicted it, and I think he's probably kind of right. There is a psychological barrier. We don't vote for women because we vote directly for the president, and women are short. And when they are all boss bitchy like Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris, there's a kind of an aversion not just from men, especially young men that we saw in the last election, but also women. Women don't like women who behave that way. But if you get her as the VP, people think, it's not so bad. And then the guy wins, he dies or is otherwise unable to serve out the rest of his term. The woman then becomes president. Then it's going to be like hard for men to win because parties are just going to throw up women. And I think people will become slightly more comfortable with the idea. And because you'll probably run a woman against the woman because the woman will be the incumbent. They'll think you need the woman, and then we'll just like always have women
But
presidents.
I think it's not
That's
gonna
Gerald Ford's
happen.
prediction from like 1970 something.
I think it was
I think it's
possible, but I think it's over. I think they had this was the last chance because even liberals I know that like women, like the ones who are self-aware, are like the women can't win. We just know they can't win. So why are we putting up a woman?
it's not just a matter of can they win. Like I said, I'm not voting for a ticket if it's got a vice president. Like if the woman is a vice presidential candidate, I'm not voting for that ticket. I'm making that
But if
expressly
that's
clear.
vocalized, then I don't think they'll do it. Like I don't think they will give them. I was surprised that Trump didn't pick a woman. Actually, I thought he was going to.
I was too. I thought for sure he would. I thought for sure he was going to pick like probably not Kristi Noem, but
No, I didn't think her. But
Carrie Lake. Carrie Lake
yeah,
delivering Arizona seemed like it would make sense.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen anymore because I think everybody's becoming so racist and sexist that I don't think that's a possibility because it already was not happening yet, and now I think things are just even worse. Like people are gaining your attitude of I just will not vote for a woman, or at least saying like I don't want that. Like I'm at the point where I would vocalize like that would not be my first option. Please do not run a woman. And I think the primaries get rid of most of them anyways. Like next primary, as people are more conservative, it's going to be a lot harder to run a woman that looks tough, like really tough, like actually is going to take on the challenges that we need to take on and willing to do like the very, very uncomfortable things that come with like a lot of ire. Like heavy is the head that wears the crown, right?
Well, you saw Megyn Kelly the other day get into it with Matt Walsh because she was saying, "I know a
I
lot of
did
young
not
women
see
there."
that.
You
Actually,
didn't
you'll
see
have
it.
to tell me about it.
I don't know how I can roll the clip and still keep our conversation here. We're
You
gonna
can
have to
just
figure out.
tell me how to do it. We'll figure
Basically,
it out later.
she was just saying that she knows a lot of young women who are careerists, right? Because Megyn Kelly is a boss bitch, and so she probably only hangs out with women like that. She's like, yeah, I know these brilliant, wonderful young women who they just can't find men who want to marry them because men don't want to marry these career women. And it's Matt
Yes.
Walsh then steps in and is like, well, yeah, obviously, like why would they want to? They see the divorce rates, they see these women complain online about their husbands that aren't pulling their weight because they both work, but then the women bear a disproportionate amount of the child care, which is true because kids need and then they want their mom over dad. Dad's fun, mom is like primary. And so it just destroys marriages. And so they don't want that.
Well, they
Right?
also disqualify anybody who would marry them because they have such high standards because they have everything a woman has, like the regular needs of a woman, which is like an infinitely long list. And then you have to add on that they have to make more money than me. It's like you're CEO. You're never going to find anyone who makes more money than you. like, and they have to have like, you know, these assets, or like there's certain things that they require, like these boss babes, like
Yeah,
maybe
women do
certain
not
city like characteristics, like certain
they do not like to
hobbies.
marry men that make less money than them. That's like we see that across the board, across demographics. Uh, what's weird is that they don't seem to have a problem with having kids with them. So we see this in these rural areas. We were talking about these kind of decimated rural areas. The men have no prospects. They're working at dead end jobs. They're working at Dollar Tree. They're doing whatever. And then the women dominate in those areas because they're in nursing, teaching. Those are the high paying jobs in these rural towns or these destroyed post industrial towns. They won't marry the men, but they will have, they'll be their baby mama, right? So it's like we
Right.
see the behavior that we typically have associated with the black community in the white community, right? It's just that the drugs are different, and you know you're you're in trailers instead of in Section 8 housing. So it's interesting how that seems to kind of pervade or seems
But
to
so what
transcend
was Megan
race.
Kelly's response to Matt Walsh saying like, yeah, no, of course nobody wants to marry them?
Well, they've had beef about this topic before. I didn't see her exact response, but I think it was essentially like, "That's just ridiculous. Like, you just want women to be like barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen," and then all the guys are like, "Yeah, basically."
Yeah.
I mean, there's,
No,
it,
you know what's interesting? There is a study that like, and everybody knows this anyways, but like men do not care, because they looked at like what like CEO girl versus like just like a girl at Wendy's, like who was more attractive, and the men rated them purely on their physical attraction. There was nothing else, but the women obviously rated the men on indicators of like how they dressed, what type of job it looked like what they were kind of demonstrating. Could they secure resources in the future? Did they like display that? And the men are just like, that girl at the Wendy's counter was the most beautiful girl I've ever seen in my life. I want to marry her.
kind of bad though.
Yeah, and they're like, but this woman makes $100,000 a year. It's like, yeah, but the Wendy's girl, you know, like men don't care at all, like
No, it's
zero about
there's no
education.
correlation with like women's
In
success
fact, it's
and
negative.
men's attraction to
It's
them.
negative. The high, like if a woman has a anything beyond a bachelor's degree becomes negative.
Even a bachelor's degree is no go, no go. We need bitches with GEDs. Without a GED.
It's gonna be your first
I'm
album
kidding.
song.
I'm kidding. Bitches without a GED. Yeah, that's my soul of my rap career.
Yeah,
Um, no, I mean you're seeing it. I mean, people say Twitter's not real life. I don't think that's true. I think it's the public square, and people are maybe a little bit more open on
I
Twitter. But
think
that's the
Twitter's
problem.
more
Is they're
real than
more open
Reddit
on Twitter.
or any other site
So
now.
there's a war. It's like there's a generational war. There's a race war. There's a sex war. It's like all brewing
Flame
online at
wars.
the same time. We've
No, can't we
transcended
just get
flame
back to
wars.
good old fashioned wars? Like just plain wars. You know, I'm done with the gender wars. I'm done with the culture wars.
Yeah,
Bring us back a good old
Everybody's sick of the
Iranian
system.
war. Yeah, no,
Everybody's sick of the system. So nobody's happy under it, and so people are looking to jump ship, and they're looking to
well, they're looking at
seize
new
power for
things.
themselves.
They're looking at new ideas. Like I've seen so many people talk about like, well, what about feudalism? What about going back to a monarchy? What about anything? You know, they're way more open to exploring new systems. Where for the last several decades, Republicans' objectives have been reaching the pinnacle of mankind, which is Ronald Reagan's America. They just nothing in their minds could ever possibly be greater than that. That's like the only thing we could ever get back to is Ronald Reagan's America. Now people are like totally open to ideas way off the grid, like full on reconstructions of our society down to like a fundamental level. And people are having those conversations, which is what I think is good. I think it's good to have those conversations, but it makes the boomers seethe, because people are like, you know what? I don't even know if I want the right to vote anymore. And then they get so
I don't think I'm going to pay into Social Security.
I
I
think so.
just don't want
Then you'll
to.
never get it. I'm not gonna get it anyways.
I'm
It's
gonna
like a
get it
Punnett
anyway,
Square. Like I'm not getting it, and I will never get it. You, if I stop paying in, then you will never get it, which also will then make me happy, because I will still never get into it. It's like it's funny. There's no convincing in the shame. The shame you've talked about that on your Twitter. I've seen. is like you've mentioned shame. Like the shame doesn't work. Shaming people and just saying you're lazy or dumb or what, you don't want to work at a factory, like the shame just doesn't work.
Well, yeah, it's just, yeah, back to the factory thing. It's like I don't understand. I really don't understand the psychology of a leftist truly, right? Because they profess one thing, but then as soon as they're presented with what they want being kind of given to them, like, oh, we're gonna give people good union jobs back. They then are like, actually, we don't want that. You're a
I
loser. You're dumb for thinking that we should have that. You're gonna work in a
I
sweatshop,
think a
really?
good example is that, like, as Tucker Carlson has said, you need an aristocracy to speak for the people, because the people are either too unintelligent or don't have the mechanisms or whatnot. You know, not to be disparaging, just saying that's like the reality. Is you need benevolent people who have the intelligence and the assets and the voice and whatever to speak on their behalf. Um, and the problem is that the leftists think that you can only speak for the group you represent. And so that when somebody comes out, and a good example of this is Jeremy Clarkson over in England advocating for the farmers. Every time he says farmers need this money, like you can't be robbing them of their inheritance. They say, well, do you need an inheritance? It's like, no, I'm just speaking on their behalf. I'm the one out of a million farmers who doesn't need this. And then they'll say, well, you don't need it. And it's like they can't understand that you can speak for a group that you are not a part of, like on their behalf, in a way that where they actually want you to speak on their behalf. I'm not talking about, these like white liberal women who, advocate for stuff they don't understand. I'm like, you actually have somebody who wants to
speaking on behalf of the black community.
Yeah, you have somebody who actually, like, the people need a representative. They rally around someone like Jeremy Clarkson. They like what he has to say. He created a whole show about how farming is hard. It's hard to be a working class person, and the government makes it impossible at every opportunity. And then you guys just belittle us and berate us. And then they just say, like, well, you don't need this. Like, you don't need an income. Like, and it's like, yes, personally, I don't, but I'm representing this group. And so I think they find a problem, like you said, like with the woman who's like, well, do you want to work at a factory? It's like, no, but people do. And there's no option to work at a factory. If they don't want to work at the factory, they won't work at the factory. But they just don't have the option now. It's like with the mothers. If they don't want to be a stay-at-home mom, they can go work. Just right now, they don't have the opportunity to be a stay-at-home mom because you've destroyed the economy.
True. Yeah, no, I mean, it's there's no options, right? You're just kind of forced into whatever line of work is available. And there's no, like you said, there's no middle class, really. I mean, the middle class is dead.
Where towns are dying because everybody's got to go to cities to.
Well, we're overproducing. We're overproducing elites, right? That's another big problem. Is if going to college was like the ticket to the upper middle class almost for a long time. Like it used to be. You see it in New York, for example. A lot of the cops, even still, are Irish or Italian, right? Because that being a cop was kind of like that was the middle class. Like if you were a cop, you were middle class, and if you were a poor Irishman or a poor Italian coming over, you could do that, and you've made it essentially. Um, Now to live the kind of lifestyle that a off the boat Irish immigrant lived in New York, you would need to be some kind of quant. Basically, you'd have to be pulling down six figures to live in the same house that some guy and his like 9 kids lived in with
Right.
the wife. So it's there's just, I don't know. I really don't know what Trump is going to actually be able to accomplish with these tariffs, if it's going to bring back the level of manufacturing that we need. But there's so much more that we need to do, right? It's not just giving people the option. You kind of need to coerce them, and you also need to clean up the damage that's been done, because a lot of people are they're drug addicted, right? Maybe we can get them off of it. Maybe we can't. Maybe it's like the next generation that's the one that's going to have a shot. So then we got to deal with this like drug addicted, burned out generation. What do we do with them? So we need to lock down the border. We got to stop letting the fent flow. We got to start being tough on crime. We got
Well,
to
I'm a big proponent of you have to create an environment if you want people to behave a certain way. Majority of people are not conscious enough to make the right decisions, like fully all the time, especially in a vacuum. I don't even think they will always make the right decisions. We don't live in a vacuum. We are influenced incredibly heavily by the media, by companies who want you to waste all your money, who want you to go into debt. You're influenced by people politicians who want you to flood your country to devalue your wages. So we're not even living in a vacuum. So I don't think a lot of average people are making the best decisions for themselves. Does that mean they can't have any freedom to make those decisions? No. But what that does mean is you have to create an environment that protects them from certain things that are never good. Like you should not be allowing them to make decisions that are never good. You should not be allowing someone to take on a 25% interest rate. That should be illegal because it's their option to do it. It's like they're uneducated, they don't know what they're doing, they don't understand the consequences. That's not freedom. It's like freedom to make terrible
decisions. You need
information
to make truly free choices.
Right.
Well, look at the online gambling thing. I think that's the best example. It is everywhere. Every commercial on every channel for everything is gambling. They're selling them the idea that they can fix their life. Oh yeah, you're just going to hit it big on the you're going to get a jackpot and then all your problems will be solved, right? Just keep gambling. Just keep putting in that paycheck. And it's predatory. People who get involved in sports betting, I mean, they're just low IQ to begin with. And then you constantly bombard them with this imagery and then sell it to them as though it's going to save their life.
Right. Then you just say, oh, it's their choice. It's their choice to do it. It's like, okay.
It's not really.
Not really.
Government needs to
no one exists
enforce. Government needs to enforce morality. And that's the other conversation I think is starting to be had, is that we can't just allow everybody to be this total individual, totally free and constrained from any kind of convention, and they can just do whatever they want all the time, right? There are morals that need to be enforced so that society doesn't break down, so we don't have declining birth rates, so we don't have suicide epidemics, so we don't have drug addicts.
Well, it all comes from, like, it's all connected. Like I said, like you have a lot of crime, which causes people not to be involved in their community. Then they're depressed because they don't have anybody. Then they kill themselves, and they do drugs, then they create porn, then they advocate for OnlyFans, which does other, it's all connected. It's hard to find one root, but if there's a couple major things you can do, like the economics, like kicking out 40 million people who don't belong here would be a great start to economically helping people. Getting rid of income tax and replacing that with like tariffs. Hasn't he like floated that idea about?
He's talked about it. He was hyping up Liberation Day as though it was going to be this awesome. People were speculating that he was going to get rid of income tax.
Never buy the hype. It's never, the Republicans never deliver on the hype.
No, Trump is just edging us constantly. So I am not a plan truster.
I am that on a shirt. Trump's been edging me constantly.
Everybody is that I know is like a plan truster. They're like, oh, just give Trump time. Just give him time. I'm like, we don't really have a whole lot of time. 4 years is not a long time. And 40 million divided by 4 is 10 million a year, which is like 10,000 a day or something. It's like, we got to get these deportations up. We can't be doing less than 1,000 a day.
The most effective way would be to just lock them out of society if you can, which is like
both.
The major thing is, if you just went after these companies like Walmart, who is obviously hiring like thousands of illegals, you would just you would scare most of them off. And like I said, you could have like a voluntary program to leave. Like, yeah, we're gonna put you on a plane and send you back. We're gonna make sure you get home safely. Anything to do to get them out. A buyout program. I don't know.
No, it's like, we'll pay for your plane ticket. Like, go get out.
You just need them gone, but you need them self-reporting.
But if you don't leave voluntarily, we're seizing all your assets. That really ought to be that's the incentive. So if you've somehow managed to buy yourself a house or a car or saved up any money, we're taking that because you stole that from the American people. So if you want to leave with that, it's fine. Go home. But if we have to come find you, we're going to take it.
There's not enough physical agents, though. I mean, if you really wanted to know where all these people are and get rid of them, like, you just tell teenagers that you give them like $500 for everyone you like report.
Yeah,
that would be the newest side hustle you'd see on TikTok.
Yeah, they do. Here's how I make $10,000 a week reporting illegal aliens.
Yeah,
and it's just like I I go to every party. I go to every high school party that at my school, and I'm in all these Facebook groups, and I've learned how to speak Spanish. Like he's like just going through. It's like how I
A day in the life of like a career reporter. You're just like, first I
yeah
wake
I've
up
been
8 a.m., then I go to the hang out at the local Home Depot.
yeah I've been thirst trapping. I've been catfishing
I've been
Hispanic
catfishing
girls on
illegals.
Tinder, and then when they show up to the date, it's just an ICE agent in a
It's just Tom Homan himself, but he's
Tom
wearing a
moment.
nice
Yeah.
suit, so it's okay. Yeah, I like you got to get them to leave voluntarily. Luckily, haven't the crossings basically stopped?
I think they're down. I think that they are at a lower, like one of the lowest points in recent history.
Which I think he's been able to do. I think it's fine. It's just like, but the numbers of the people here, you have to get them out, and
Yeah, they
um,
gotta go.
scaring them out would probably be the best way to do it. But they just don't seem that serious about it. Like the mass deportations, like was it? It's like a couple hundred people a
No,
day.
they're focused on deporting college students who protest against Israel.
Right,
That's where the
right.
priority is right now.
I mean, it's fine if you're focusing on like the gang members and stuff first, but they just it's got to go much faster. And there's like a physical limit to how fast the government can do it versus getting them to leave. But anyways, so that would be one problem that I think would be a major problem to solve. Um,
You'd
yeah,
be surprised how far deporting 40 million people would go to fixing the economy.
I think that would be economically that would be a major thing. The crime is if you want people to leave their houses and meet other people, you have to like get rid of the crime.
Well, that
Um,
was what they found in El Salvador, is that a lot of their economic issues stemmed from the fact that people couldn't go outside their homes at night, and now all of a sudden that they arrested like what 40,000 people and just locked them in prison forever. People are out they're going outside. The towns are alight even after dark, and so that's great for the economy. People need to be
well,
safe. They need to be able to go
there's
and
a
do
level
commerce.
of the snowballing effect of in El Salvador 10 years ago, you knew if you reported somebody, nothing was going to happen to them. And worst case scenario, the corrupt cop on the payroll knows that you reported his cousin and they just come and kill you. So
Yeah.
there's no benefit to reporting anybody. But now it's like, hey, we're actually going to follow through on this. Um, and so a bunch of young men joined the police force because they said, I can make a difference. When I arrest a criminal, they're going to prison. They're not going to be released. We're
They're
rooting out
not
all
going
the
to cut my
corruption.
kid's head off
Right.
and send me a video of
I
it.
can really protect my family. The old grandma who never would have reported because she was afraid for her safety, as soon as she sees a crime, she's reporting it. And so there's the snowballing effect where when people feel they can actually make a difference, they will start to do things that make a difference. But it has to be shown. Like the police officers right now, a lot of them are just like, waiting to get their pension and cash out because the ones like in California, because they know no matter what good they do, the criminal will just be arrested the next day. So it's really not worth putting in any extra effort. And the people know that too. Like they see a crime and they're just like, that's not my problem. It didn't happen to me because I just
My
know he's going to be
grandma.
caught and released. So if you want, but that would help the relationships. That would help the mental health significantly. That whole Bowling Alone book as a reference. Big things for relationships. Getting rid of no fault divorce would be challenging.
It'd be very challenging.
Not banning
That's
all divorce yet, but no fault divorce would be that'd be challenging to get done. But that would be major because it's just like, hey, just like don't make a terrible decision, and also like you're not just allowed to leave because you're just like, I just don't love him anymore. It's like, sorry, you have kids and you took on this responsibility, and like the responsibility is you raise them as like a family. Are you in space? Are you in Shenzhen?
I'm in
You're in
cyberpunk.
China.
You're, I think, jealous that I have moving assets in my background like a fish and
Like a fish.
lights and flying cars.
No,
And you've just got
I
this
would
like
rather
sad
live in the
sterile
past than
room.
the future. I would rather live with my nice quaint open window with a tree than in your tech dystopia.
Oh, wow. This has the fire hazard cotton candy clouds on on the ceiling.
I've never heard that before.
Dude, it's stuff. It's just like polyester, isn't it? It's probably just like a little bit of a spark.
Wait, where's my do I change my tiles? The cozy home style?
That's lame.
Lord of the Rings is kind of good.
I'm in space. You get out of here.
I'm in space.
All right.
There you go. I'm a pirate.
Well, now that we've thoroughly derailed the conversation. But yeah, it's been about 2 hours, so I think we could call it here.
Yeah, I think that's probably about
covered
good.
a lot of most of what's going on today, last couple of days.
Things are moving. Things are moving. They're moving in a good direction. I think the small things we're getting caught up on because we want it to go faster. We want Trump to do better, but like
I just don't think it's enough. I think more needs to be done.
I agree, but I think it's things are going in the right direction, and that's something to be happy about in and of itself. And that gives us momentum to start getting things increasingly better. Seeing people like Matt Walsh come out and crash out on Twitter and say things I never thought he would say, stuff like that gives me hope. So
if Matt Walsh leaves the Daily Wire, I might start to believe.
That's my canary in the coal mine.
We'll see. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed the stream. Seems like you got a lot of comments, mostly from Carl.
All negative for you.
All negative is just like they're all pretty positive. Run It Black always comes in here and dogs on me, but that's okay. He's Nigerian, so who cares what he thinks? All right. Well, thank you all so much for watching. I'll be on some point. We'll be streaming.
We'll do this again at some point.
Yeah, we'll do this again at some point. But I'll try to get my own streams going again. All right. Well, thanks. I'll see you later. I'll catch all of you later.
Yeah. Catch you guys later. Thank you for watching.